Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Building Better Business webinar, How to Submit Newspaper Articles for Your Local Paper. My name is Natalia Morrison, and I am the Director of Communications for FSOMA. And tonight we have David Bibbey, who is the Vice President for FSOMA. And we both feel this is a really good and exciting topic to bring to you guys tonight. So thank you again for joining us. So before David starts his presentation tonight, I wanted to go over some housekeeping. So if you guys notice at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A icon. And during the presentation, if you have any questions, you can submit them there. You would just hit on the icon and submit your questions. And you can see the questions that your other colleagues have submitted. So if there's a question that you thought of, you can upvote it. You can also add your own question. Please make sure you are as detailed as possible with your questions. We're going to try and hold the questions towards the end of the presentation. So the more detailed your questions are, the better for David and for me to be able to remember where that question was supposed to land. And then there is also a chat box. So why don't we explore the chat box? At the bottom of your screen, just hit the chat button and type in and let us know what city and state you're in. So I am currently in Miami, and David, you are?
I'm in Crystal River, Florida.
In Crystal River, yeah. So why don't you take a moment and let us know, type in the chat box where you're located. Perfect, we have one Orlando, nice. Welcome, Anderson. Rafael, Miami, hey. Good, great. So you guys know where the chat box is. Caroline in Hollywood. Another Orlando. Thank you, Diana. Nice. So you guys also found the raised hands. We're not going to be using the raised hands during our live presentation today, but you can definitely add it on to the Q&A. Oh, and we have someone from Melbourne Beach. Welcome, Marcella. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you. So we're going to hold all the Q&A to the end of the presentation. And David, it's all yours. Hi.
Oh, good. Let me just make sure volume's down and ready to go. Okay. So screen share. Fitting. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I have put together a quick presentation for us on submitting newspaper articles. And I thought we'll, like Natalia asked, we'll take questions at the end, but let me just dive right into this for you. And feel free to write down a question or two as the presentation goes along, and we'll try to make sure that we wrap it up in the end for you. The big question I wanted to sort of address first was, why would somebody choose to do this? What is it that I'm looking to achieve? And so I just wanted to distill some of those benefits this way. It helps raise awareness of complementary alternative medical health news. You can communicate about your passions. You can provide data that supports your positions. You can educate your community. You can become an established subject matter expert. And it's a great source of passive marketing and advertising. So those are, at least 6 good reasons. There's probably more reasons why you should consider doing this, but we'll start with those. And the discussion tonight is really appropriate for any print or digital medium. And a lot of news organizations have both, where you may have a local paper, but they also have a digital platform for online news. And submitting articles to one or the other or both is appropriate. And then also, it's probably best to start with your local newspaper organization as opposed to, USA Today or the New York Times or something like this that's out of our region. Starting with your local newspapers makes the most sense because you're reaching a target audience of people that are in your area. And then you also want to be mindful of other publicly shared newsletters, because it may be an article that you choose to put into a newspaper, but either abbreviated versions of that or other information you can submit to civic organizations that put out a newsletter, neighborhood associations or groups, parent groups, political and religious groups. Just about any organization has a newsletter. FSOMA has a regular newsletter. Other medical associations do. But think about civic organizations in your community, maybe ones that you belong to, or others that you may have been invited to speak before, or people that you're familiar with, like the Lions Club or the Kiwanis or Rotarians. The list goes on and on. There's business forums through the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, just any civic organization is going to have a newsletter, and sometimes they're a little starved for content. So it's helpful to get in touch with them and say, hey, even if it's a local church, do you have a health news section? Do you have a health alert section? Anywhere where you can sort of insert some copy or content would be helpful, okay? So we're going to start with local newspapers, publicly shared newsletters, digital or print format. The where and when here, starting with your local newspaper, there are multiple options, obviously, in larger cities and towns. So if you're in the Orlando area, there may be several papers. In the Tampa area, several papers. Miami area, several papers. Smaller towns and in areas, counties, tend to have only one paper if they're not densely populated. But pick a paper that's maybe in your, again, based on geography, what's circulated largely, what do you see people reading in your local coffee shop or elsewhere. Newsletters, again, verify with the publisher for either a newspaper or a newsletter. Verify the publisher includes, just make sure that there's a health section. Like if you call the paper and they say we have no health section, then maybe sometimes you could submit an article under the lifestyle section. Or oftentimes now, as print media has become consolidated, they've combined health and lifestyle to be one section where historically it may have been two. Okay. And then you want to make sure that you're asking, do you have that health section in printed format, in digital format, or in both? And then it's important to know how frequently that's published. Is it published daily, weekly, monthly, Sundays only, or more or less frequently? Okay, just so you have an idea when the health section is being viewed by the public. So submitting your article, it's important to contact the right person. This is essential. So when you're contacting an organization that publishes print or digital newspaper or newsletter, you want to communicate with the editor, okay? And depending on the size of the organization, more than one editor may exist. But you want to communicate with the health section editor. And then speak to or privately email that person directly. Because this is going to be the decision maker about whether or not your article can be placed in the newspaper or newsletter. So newsletters published by local social groups likely only have one editor, so it's pretty easy. Again, contact them directly. Newspapers, you can research online what the contact number is for them and identify the phone number for the newspaper. Sometimes the editor's name is printed in the paper as well. They'll have a list of the publisher's name, the editor's name, the chief copyright person, whoever the administration for the newspaper or newsletter is sometimes printed right on the paper or the newsletter itself. And again, same with the newsletters. You can do an online search for the organization like Crystal River Lions Club. You can get their phone number. Then if you have a copy of their newsletter, sometimes look right on it. It'll have the editor's name, their contact information. Usually the information is there for advertisers, but certainly you can use it for your own purposes, okay? So calling or emailing, your message to the newspaper is basically the same. And I sincerely recommend that you make these personal phone calls and ask for the editor. And, you know, if you just call the local newspaper, the Tampa Bay Times, and say, hi, I'd like to speak to the news editor, they're going to forward you to the newsroom. And whoever answers that phone, you say, I'd like to speak to the health editor, you know, the health section. And they may say, we don't have a separate editor for that particular section, just the regular news editor handles everything. Or they might pass you directly through to that person. It just depends on the size of the organization. But this is basically, I gave you a little script for how you want to approach this question on the phone. And this is true whether or not it's a newsletter, a newspaper, or and whether you're calling live or sending an email. And you just want to say, you know, hello, my name is David. I'm a licensed healthcare provider in Crystal River. I specialize in treating pain and other chronic conditions your readers likely have questions about. How can I submit short, informative articles for print in your health and lifestyle section? That's it. You know, you don't have to say any more or less than that. That's a great way to start that conversation. So long as you're speaking to the editor. You know, if you're speaking to somebody else, they're going to say, you know, I can't help you, or I got to pass you along to leave a message. But get the editor on the phone. Expect follow-up questions, because they're busy doing 10 different things, and, you know, they just picked up their phone, probably regretting it, you know, and they're going to, who are you again? What do you want? You know, expect this. Expect a follow-up question for you to make your case clear again. So calmly just repeat and restate your purpose. So I'm going to restate it just a little bit. Hi, my name is David. I'm calling from Alternative Primary Care. I've been practicing in Crystal River since 2011. I see you publish a health section weekly, and I'd like to contribute short, informative articles for your readers. That says it all. Now, I put in weekly because I know that they have a weekly section, but if you want to do a little research, do they do it monthly? Do they do it, you know, bi-monthly? You know, how often is that health section available? And if you're not sure, you don't have to say weekly at all. You can just skip right over it and say, I see you publish a health section. I'd like to contribute short, informative articles for your readers. This is nice and succinct. Now that you have their attention, they're paying attention to your name, why you're calling, that you're a local person in the neighbor, you know, from the community, and that you want to publish an article in the health section. It's nice and clear. So that should clearly communicate your purpose in calling. And my recommendation is that you always call the editor. Okay, answer any follow-up questions directly, overcome any objections if they have them, get a yes or no right then and there on the phone. They may say, you know, we're not taking any new contributors. Or they might say, you know, we do that, but we only do it in our digital format now. You know, something like this. You don't, you know, give yourself an opportunity to hear their either a question or objection and answer to it. And then you get your yes or no, and then you can move on to your next contact. Maybe you're going to call, you know, if they agree to it, then I wouldn't necessarily call a competitor newspaper and try to, you know, submit content to the competitor because we're not, you know, Dear Abby here. You know, we're not really looking to get syndicated. We just want to be profiled in our community. But your other contacts might include the Lions Club, the Rotarians, like I said, the Kiwanis Club, a local church, somebody that you know has a newsletter that goes out and you'd like to provide them with some health news content, okay? So email is less personal, but I do have some suggestions for those who just really struggle with the idea of calling people cold. And so you know, before I get to that, I'm sorry, I have another slide here. So there's a couple of questions you need to be prepared to answer, okay, if you're on the phone. And this would apply to also to email communications with the newspapers, but let's stick to the telephone question first. Be prepared to answer them asking you, what topics will you cover? You know, it's just a simple question, because they might say, hey, I've got 6 people already giving me health news. They seem to have everything covered. You know, I've got a dermatologist, I have an oncologist, I have somebody in pain management. You know, I don't know if I need another health contributor because I have limited space in the newspaper to do that. So they're going to ask you, what topics are you going to cover? Why should I care? And so you want to have a nice, succinct response. And this is what I'd like you to say. My articles will include evidence-based information about the safe and effective use of complementary and alternative medicine to address common health concerns, including using diet, exercise, meditation, herbs, and other therapies. I'm happy to send you a sample article to review. That's it. Because they don't have anybody, most likely, submitting evidence-based content based on complementary or alternative medical principles that address diet, exercise, meditation, and these things. So you're going to set yourself apart as a unique provider of content, and you've already told them that this is going to be evidence-based and that it's about the safe and effective use. And those 2 things alone sort of help shape your relationship with this person. The editor is going to then look to you to make good on that promise, that the articles and the data and the information that you send are evidence-based, and they're about the safe and effective use of complementary and alternative medicine. That is the nature of that understanding. And then you can, you know, shape that information to, like I say, include the things that come below and other things that might occur to you. But that's the basis of your providing content and copy to whoever the publisher is. So the email approach, again, I provided you a little bit of language. Identify the editor's name and email, and then in your subject, just put in something simple like health news, and then dear sir, or with the person's name, dear John. I'd like to contribute short, informative articles under the health section for your readers. I'm a local healthcare provider with an established reputation and practice. These articles will include evidence-based information about the safe and effective use of complementary and alternative medicine for common health concerns. All copy is original, and I attached a sample article for your review. Please share your submission deadline and word count maximum for the health news section. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute and inform your readers. And then sign this with your normal, your signature that has your name, of course, your practice name, and your contact details. That would be the address and phone number for your practice. So they have all of that information. So you can see in this instance, we sort of saved a step where in the email, you're assuming they're willing to accept your content, and then you're asking them for a submission deadline and a word count maximum, because those 2 things are very important to the editor. They only want a couple of things from their people who submit articles. They want them on time, and they want them to meet the format that's common and usual to the section. If this was on the front page, or if it was in the first 3 or 4 pages, they may have a 2,000 word minimum or maximum on these articles. Because they're national news stories, they're things that are explored in depth. But here in the health section, usually they're kind of short and pithy. 250 words is your typical max. If you have a relationship with the editor and they really like your writing and the subject matter, or something very important comes up and you call them and you want to make an exception, that's fine. But they don't want late work, and they don't want 600 words for an article that's supposed to be 250 words. Okay, this is not the relationship that they want to develop with you. So assuming that your call or email generates a positive response, what's next? You have to understand, like I said, that you've now created a relationship with the editor, and the relationships come with expectations. And we have to understand and respect these expectations so that you can maximize the opportunity by always meeting or exceeding those expectations. The expectations are simple. Materials submitted on time, and that it meets the criteria, that it's consistent with what their agreement was, that it's going to be about evidence-based, safe and effective use of CAM, complementary alternative medicine, however you want to describe and expand on that. So to maximize your relationship, I'm repeating a little bit, I'm saying meet your deadline, then have somebody proofread your copy. Copy is the word that's used to describe anything that's being submitted for reprint. It's content, or it's copy, or it's both. But it's not generally referred to as an article or a paragraph or other terms. It's sort of a news term. So have them proofread your copy. You know, obviously for misspelled words or poor syntax or poor construction, but also to make sure that, you know, if you're trying to make a point, that you actually make your point. You know, things like this that are important. They want it to be easy to read, straightforward. Keep the words in the articles at or below your max word count. And despite the title, editor, they really don't want to edit your copy. So the 3 words that I'd recommend are be complete, be clear, and be concise, because those 3 things really make for the best articles. You want to have a fully formed, you know, a fully formed narrative, you know, a story, whatever it is that you're trying to say. It's not half stated. You've made your point, you've made it clearly, and you've made it concisely, okay? So here you go. If you approach your editors with an email introduction, remember that you said, you know, I've attached a sample for your review. And so my advice here would be to prepare a 250 word sample article. It could be an actual article, you know, either one that you've published or printed elsewhere, or one that you intend to submit for publishing. But for the purposes of that communication, it's a sample. Pick a suitable topic, and suitable, I mean something that the general public understands and can relate to. So you want your titling to go something like heart health and cardiovascular risks, painful joints and arthritis, chronic pain and fibromyalgia, managing irritable bowel, IBS, IBD, physical manifestation of emotional pain, age-related memory loss versus dementia. Just that list can go on and on and on. You just think of things that the general public would understand and would relate to. And this is going to be the subject matter of your article material. Okay, so a typical newspaper article, this is the title on this, the anatomy of an article. Typically it has, it says 6, but I put it in 7 parts because I added one at the end for you. But typically just 6. Headline, which is a short attention-getting statement about the topic. That's going to be over just open the newspaper, every article has a headline. A headshot, typically in the health section, food section, lifestyle section. For contributors that are not part of the staff, they'll put in a headshot. So use a recent professional photo that's digital. You can email that. Byline is the proper name of the person writing the article. And then your lead paragraph. And this has all of the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Those are the, you know, the pillars of journalism. Who are we talking about? What happened? When did it happen? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? How did it happen? So these are elements that you want to think of in terms of answering, you know, you're not reporting on a car crash. You're going to be talking about something related to health and wellness and or health concern. But the principles are really the same. You want to kind of stick to those factual who, what, when, where, why, and how. And a writer should include facts and data related to the article topic in the opening sentence. And you don't want to wait to do this in the last paragraph, like you're going to do some grand summary. You start with your headline, byline, lead paragraph. And then I provided some examples that Natalia can send for you guys. Maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 articles that I submitted in the last year or so that you can just sort of get a feel for how they start, how they unfold, how they conclude. And some of, I think 1 or 2 of them have like short ones, like 250 words. And I've got probably all the way up to maybe 750 words. But you just want to, you know, make sure that you're submitting articles based on the maximum word count allowed by the editor. Okay. So any one of those longer articles could have been cropped in and reduced, but they just accepted more copy at the time. Lastly, or not lastly, but this is the next in the body of your article is the explanation. After the lead paragraph has been written, decide on what other facts or details the reader might want to know. Okay, making sure that enough information is provided to answer any important questions the reader might have after reading the headline and the lead paragraph. So I don't want to complicate this too much, but I'm just saying, don't introduce like 4 concepts in the lead paragraph and then only answer 3 of them. You know, that would be where you need an explanation or additional space for more details. Try to stick to 1 or 2 things that points that you're trying to make, even if it's just 1, and that'll keep you from developing these tangents to your article or to your story that don't get wrapped up as cleanly as they should. It's much easier if you do this in a, like I say, you know, clear, concise way. And so this is, again, the last of my anatomy of the article things. Additional information would come after the explanation if there was more details that you wanted to provide. But if you're doing something in 250 words, you don't need any additional information. You're going to get your intro, then you're going to get your explanation. And then the last item here is, as I said, copy or content that's submitted by non-staffers usually include a short bio detail at the end. And it's about the author, including their name, business name, address, telephone, and email. And the editor will usually say, send me a short bio. And they mean short, like 2 sentences. You know, any other additional training or certification or areas of specialty that you've had advanced training for, you can just, you know, you can either write it out or include those initials with your name. But it's nice that, you know, after the article is read, they'll have those contact details printed in the paper for you. So this is important. You know, editorial discretion is you need to expect the editor to review and edit your article. Not all the time, and not always in any kind of meaningful way, but they will. Again, they may edit it. The common ones are changing the title of your article. If you submit an article with a title, it usually gets changed. You know, they'll come up with something else. Eliminating any wordy or extraneous details. They're kind of quick with the red pen. Resorting the placement of words, sentences, and paragraphs. Sometimes, depending on your wording or your writing style, you might actually, you know, misplace the intro at the conclusion, because we tend to build toward a big conclusion where they want the pithy and meaty parts of this article to come at the beginning. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is because if they need to trim your article, then they're sorting it in terms of most to least important. And so if they're gonna edit, they're gonna take from the back end of your article and not the front, typically. So they may resort in the placement of words and sentences. What you won't expect to see from an editor is they're not gonna add any additional words or wording, okay? Where they're gonna start adding content to your article. You know, one is it shouldn't happen, and in most cases, I think from a journalistic standpoint, they wouldn't otherwise do that. If they really had a problem with the way you were communicating something, they might just send the article back to you with some notes to either make a point in a more clear way or something like this. But it's considered bad form for them to, unless they're going to share the byline with you and say it was submitted by you and the editor. Okay, so typically they're not going to add anything to it, but they will. Deletions are common. Okay. So again, I go back to this question of, you know, why are we doing this? Why are we submitting articles? And I just repeat that we're raising awareness of CAM health news. We're communicating about your passions. We're providing data that supports your point of view. We're educating your community, establishing you as a subject matter expert, and we're getting passive marketing and advertising. Okay, so the question of raising awareness about CAM health news is that we provide an important role based on our training and expertise to balance the media messaging. A lot of times you see the news over and over again. We hear about you know, drug therapies for everything under the sun, breakthroughs in modern medical science and whatnot, but there's not a lot of balance in that media messaging for alternative and complementary medicine that's safe and effective. It's also a very nice way for us to promote evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine, highlight positive outcomes with CAM treatments, share information with the public and other providers. You just remember, your local paper is read by, you know, typically by certainly members of the community, but who more than probably others? Business owners, people who have a vested interest in the functioning of your community, business leaders, physicians, other healthcare providers, they read the newspaper, your local newspaper, daily. You can probably, I don't know the percentages on this, but I'm going to say at least half, if not more than half of them do. And this is a nice way to have a conversation with, interdisciplinary conversation with other providers about sharing in a snippet good news about what's happening in CAM. And then also is a way to start a conversation that engages others about, on subjects that you know a lot about. So communicating your passions, the first of those elements, these are things that you want, I just put up some examples of this, but your passions are your own, and you know what draws you to our medicine, you know what keeps you in the medicine, keeps you curious and researching, but these could be things like nutritional habits to avoid preventable disease, lifestyle options for healthy mind and body, environmental impact on the healthy population and planet, pros and cons of technology on personal wellness, inner peace for personal satisfaction. And then if all else fails and you're really struggling to come up with content, like what should I write about? What, where should I start? I gave this the medicalnewstoday.com popular 2020. You open that, it's going to give you a survey of hot topics and based on a search algorithm for what information are people looking for in health news. So you want to make sure that you're choosing something, like I said, it's your passion, but you want it to be relatable and translatable and topical so that when you're submitting a news article to the newspaper, it's not about something that happened, 6 months ago. There was a trend on, grapefruit seed extract that everybody was talking about before, Christmas. You want to make sure that you're trending basically with your topic so that it's something that's topical. And a lot of times I get my ideas just by things I see on my phone, things that you might pick up in the newspaper, or you hear a story or something brewing and you say, I think I want to tell, the CAM version of that story. People are curious and digging into getting more information about it, but they're only getting one side or one point of view. I think I'll lend a complementary point of view to that. But like I say, if you're struggling to find the right area of content, go to the Medical News Today and see what's popular. And that way you know that you're trending in terms of a subject matter. You can put whatever twist you want on it, but at least your subject matter is relevant. So again, providing data that supports your positions. This is another reason why we do what we do with articles. And how do we get that? We do it with research. Typically, you're gonna have to go find some data that echinacea is, helpful with anxiety. And that's not something that people tend to think of, but the research shows that it is. You can explain why it is, or you say something like echinacea is, used for more than the common cold, or, and then get into a discussion about anxiety. But you're gonna have to do a little bit of research to find out where the data is on that. And then I challenge you to really consider the source. You wanna make sure that you're going to a reputable source for health news and statistics. Use your own critical thinking where you're going to take a look at the research, consider the source, consider the data, and then decide, yes, this is something I'm going to move forward with and share because I trust how the data was put together. One of the most important things to keep in mind is that you do not let your opinions or your opinions or other people's opinions be a substitute for facts, okay? Let the facts tell the story. When you do the research and you understand the data, and you're in a position to use some statistics to support that data. And again, whether it's metrics that are used to studying the health effects of cardiovascular exercise on heart rate or whatever it is, go find the data. Somebody at Johns Hopkins, somebody at the NIH has some data to support that. And use those facts and figures to enhance the credibility of your statements. If you have a newsletter for your practice like I do, it's shared privately with patients. I mean, obviously they can reproduce that and send it to other people, but that may be a place for opinion if you want to share it. But when you put an article in a local newspaper, this is not an op-ed, a place for us to sound off on whatever comes into our mind. This is really the opposite of what you want to do in terms of establishing credibility. So you want to be really mindful that you're not going to let opinions, yours or other people's opinions, substitute for facts. Let the facts tell the story. And that'll keep you concise and clear, on track, where you can start your thesis with whatever it is you want to describe and educate, work your way through the facts and details of that, and your conclusions are based on the data, okay? Very important that you do that. So educating your community, and this is really the most important goal of the article. It helps readers better understand an issue that you brought up. You brought it up because you're passionate about it. You brought it up because there's data to support your opinions about it. And now you're going to use that passion and data to educate people. And so you want to anticipate and answer their questions. If you have some broad statement about the use of a nutraceutical or pardon me, an herb for some reason, anticipate that might generate questions and try to include answers to those questions in your article. Not strictly as a Q&A, but just, linking together the various statements that you're going to make about whatever it is that you're recommending, anticipating what the likely questions would be. And then leave them feeling more informed about your subject. This is really the most important thing. You want them to have invested the time and energy in reading that article, and now they feel more informed about a subject that you're passionate about. Okay, help develop confidence that they learned something valuable, because knowledge is a precious gift, and you want to make good on the opportunity to share and exchange that precious gift of knowledge with people in your community by educating them. Okay, and educating them, it allows them to make better informed decisions affecting healthcare. Now, we could do this across any industry, but ours is healthcare. So we want them to next time they're considering options for their knee pain or for their digestive distress or for an anxiety condition, to feel like they have some balanced information here that's supported with data, and it's going to empower them in a way that they wouldn't otherwise be empowered without your input. Okay. So again, I say, when you raise awareness of CAM Health News, communicate about your passions, provide data that supports your positions, educate your community, those four things, basically, they establish you as a subject matter expert. That's the key outcome here, okay, is that we want to be able to do all of these four things: raising awareness, communicating about things that are important to you, providing data, and educating, so that in the end, it's well understood that you are a subject matter expert in these areas. And then establishing yourself this way by choosing your subjects wisely, especially those that you're well informed on and passionate about, will provide you this opportunity. And being able to continue and maintain and build on that opportunity depends on consistency and credibility, okay? So consistency goes back to your work habits by preparing, proofreading, editing your articles, submitting them prior to their deadline. Being consistent about that, so you're not missing deadlines and missing published issues where your articles are supposed to be in the health section, but they're not. Because you, whether you know it or not, are going to develop a readership of people who are interested in the subject matter and point of view that you bring to the health section. And they're going to look forward to seeing those articles, okay? And the credibility that you're building over time only comes through verifying data, providing facts and not opinion, and representing yourself and your training accurately. They want to be able to really trust and understand who their source is. So your messaging about your training, your credentials, your completion of advanced degrees and whatnot needs to be pristine. This is not a place where we're advertising, sending out flyers, putting names on our doors. This is read by every single member of your community, every other healthcare colleague in your community. And you don't want to be somebody who's made a misrepresentation about using certain either prefixes to your name or suffixes, initials, and distinctions for advanced degrees that are not precisely accurate. Because other people in academia and other healthcare providers who have been subjected to similar or additional training than we have are going to look very critically at how we represent ourselves to the community. And if you're representing yourself in a way that is not accurate or factual, then instead of enjoying their admiration and curiosity about what you're going to talk about, they're going to form an opinion that may be repeated to patients or colleagues and may interfere with their willingness to maybe provide referrals and other things. So credibility is very important. Be very circumspect about how you put yourself out there to the public when you're doing this type of article publishing, okay? So again, why are we doing this? In the end, passive marketing and advertising, appearing in a print and digital medium as an established, credible, complementary alternative medicine subject matter expert is the single most significant way to bring stability and growth to your practice. It requires patience, passion, and integrity. Okay, people interested in care with you, interested in care or interested in a first or second opinion want to consult with a subject matter expert. If you or your wife or your relative or someone was having an issue, and they're looking for more information, you don't say, open the paper and call, some clown to give you advice on that. They want to know that they're talking to somebody with experience and subject matter expertise. And if you're able to develop that relationship in your community and you're seen as that subject matter expert, if they're interested in care or in a first or second opinion, they want to consult with a subject matter expert. Now they're confident enough to call you and discuss their questions or concerns. And that's really, in the end, the goal in this is to practice a lot of the strategies that I provided you in the last half hour or so. But you're doing this to build toward this subject matter expertise so that when people stop and think about back pain, neck pain, constitutional concerns, anything that you write about on a regular basis, before they are said and done asking questions, before they do one trip to the orthopedic and start accepting injections, they may very well say, hey, why don't I call David? Let's talk to him about what he thinks is possible with this that may be safe and effective, evidence-based, and something that may be effective without having to subject myself to the knife. Typically, acupuncturists find themselves in that position a lot. People confide and come to us to try to avoid surgeries. And this is a way to expand that base of new patients. Okay, so passive marketing and advertising. There's a couple things to keep in mind here. You're developing this relationship, but newspapers and newsletters, print and digital, they need copy. You know what I mean? They need to fill the pages with something that's newsworthy. And editors they need reliable, trusted, and accurate content. So making sure that you are reliable in terms of meeting your deadline and the formatting of your article, that your information is from a trusted source and that it is accurate, that's what they need. And becoming a subject matter expert in your community by having your article submitted to include a byline with your name. Your article will conclude with the practice name and location. These are all the benefits of this passive marketing. They help propel you in this way. And in the end, you cannot purchase better advertising at any price. It's just not possible. Being a regular contributor to your community's news and health information is the single strongest way to create stability and growth for your practice. And I'm hopeful that the tips and strategies that are included in the presentation are helpful, and they bring you some better understanding about how to move through that process so that it's something that you can do on a regular basis. All right. Questions I'm available for this evening. Like I said, the presentation itself will be available to you, the PowerPoint, and I have submitted like I say, 5 or 6, I think, articles that have been published that I had done over the last year or so. And you're welcome to review those for formatting, for, how subject matters are introduced, the attitude and the way that it's presented. So I hope all of that together is helpful for you guys. And so thanks again for participating. This is submitting news articles: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And if you have any other questions, we'll take them now, or you have my email is david@FSOMA. I'm happy to work through this with you if you have any more questions.
Thank you, David. That was such a great presentation. I learned so much. So for all of you joining us live, why don't you take a second and type in your questions into the Q&A box. David is extremely detailed with his presentation and everything that he does, which is something that I admire of him very much. So if you don't have questions, I completely understand. He went over everything in great detail, but if you do, go ahead and write them in. So far in the chat box, we have, thank you, this was really helpful and clear. That was awesome. Yes, it was, Maria. Thank you so much. Are you going to share the PowerPoint? So for those of you that would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation and the article examples, I do have those. You could specifically send me an email to support@FSOMA.org and I can send them to you. And I will also try and send them to everyone that I attended our live presentation tonight. And Raphael says, great presentation. Yes, great presentation, David. All right, so go ahead.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't lose everybody.
No, it was really clear and concise and full of detail. And I personally love the way that you explained it. And I also learned so much.
I hope that's helpful. Like I say, it's just one of those things that you got to kind of dive in and do. You just, once you start doing it, it gets easier and easier. And, and your phone will ring. I mean, how much would any of us, pay in advertising or marketing to have your phone ring with, 10 or 15 new patients asking questions? It just, whether it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, however often you have an opportunity to get published. And it's just a wonderful way to build community and stand out.
Yeah, it's a very different way to stand out from, I think, what we think of as marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great. And I did type in my email in the chat box for those of you that are interested, which you asked. All right. Any final words, David?
No, please. Except that if anybody, struggles with that or struggles with the concepts or the execution of it, is to email me, just david@fsoma.org, and I'd be happy to lend some help.
And I'm typing that into the chat box. So why don't you guys take a minute? You can save our emails. And thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys Friday.
All right, talk to you. Oh yes, Friday we have a news update, and we're going to be talking about infection control.
Yeah, infection control best practices.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss that. All right, everyone. Have
Thanks,
a wonderful
guys. Good night,
evening.
Natalia. Thank you for your help.
Good night. Thank you.
Oh, stop my video.
There you go. I'm all done.